You're listening to the 40 Fit Radio podcast, dedicated to the 40-plus community. Join us as we discuss the truth about fitness and health using science, reason, and the experiences of our host and content experts. Welcome to the 40 Fit Nation. Hey, welcome back to 40 Fit Radio and welcome back to the 40 Fit Nation. I'm Coach D. I'm here with Coach Trent.
Good morning.
And go ahead.
I am not wearing a mask right now.
I am not either.
Ooh.
I'm not even wearing clothes. No, just joking. Visual. That will cause immediate gastric distress right there. You'll probably throw up in your mouth right there.
Yeah. I'm going to drink some more coffee to hide the taste.
Man. So we're going to talk about COVID-19 or the coronavirus. I want to preface this by saying this. Any respiratory virus that causes respiratory distress, illness, pathology, sickness, whatever you want to call it, for anyone who has a compromised immune system, maybe autoimmune disease, metabolic disorders, someone who has respiratory diseases like COPD, or they have severe asthma, or they have other, pulmonary problems, or the very aged, or the older, let's say, and when I say older, I'd say 60 plus that have other comorbidity issues, or even younger people that have severe comorbidities. In other words, other medical problems, specifically immune compromised type illnesses. Okay. Anyone, and that might also include people that take autoimmune drugs for things like rheumatoid arthritis, because it lowers their immune fighting capabilities, okay?
Right.
But anyone who has that type of medical history, or is in the aged population, the more feeble population, or the sicker population, those people need to be careful of any respiratory virus. And that includes the flu, influenza, and also coronaviruses. Okay, so let's talk about the facts. But I first wanted to put that out there. I'm not an MD, I'm not a DO, I'm a DPT, I'm a doctor of physical therapy, and I'm not an expert at immunology, I'm not an expert at pathology. I do have a medical background. I'm also a strength coach and the author of 40 Fit Radio. But at the same time, I just want to preface and put that out there. If you have a relative that is 82 years old and they have COPD and they're on steroids and they have a compromised immune system, those people need to be careful and they need to practice good isolation techniques or good, safe, I guess you would say, good, safe daily hygiene. And that would include things like potentially wearing a mask if they go out and they're in a crowded area, or washing their hands frequently, avoiding shaking hands with people, avoiding being around people that are coughing and sneezing around them. And then also for themselves, coughing and sneezing, practicing safe techniques. In other words, coughing into their arm, that type of thing. So they want to stay away from public areas with a lot of people during the flu season, which is when most people are kind of cramped up all together, which would be during the winter months.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And that's when the virus is more active too. So there's two reasons. Number one, more population is indoors and together, but also the virus is more active during those months. So anyone who has a compromised immune system needs to be careful with respiratory viruses that can make people really, really sick and kill some people.
Stay out of DFW airport.
Yeah. I mean, you just got to be smart. You just got to be smart. And so that goes without saying across the board. I mean, that's not the sky is falling type approach here, okay?
Right.
But that just goes without saying. But I'm going to read some statistics this morning. This is a kind of a contrast between COVID-19 and okay. So first of all, coronaviruses are a class or a family of viruses. Okay, the coronaviruses, upper respiratory viruses. And it's a whole class of viruses. Specifically, this particular virus that is kind of spreading throughout the world right now is called COVID-19 because it's a coronavirus disease, COVID, and it was first found or first came to be in 2019. Okay, so it's called COVID-19. That's a particular strain that seems to be spreading. Okay, First of all, WHO, the World Health Organization, within the last 2 days, has declared this a pandemic. And I want to clarify, according to Webster's Dictionary, what is a pandemic? Okay, a pandemic is when something spreads throughout the world or within many different regions and affects a high percentage of the population, a very high percentage of the population. As of right now, if you look at the numbers and the total world population of the total humankind.
Yeah, 7.5 billion people.
Right, and if you look at the numbers, you would not consider this a pandemic. This is not like the flu of 1918 where millions of people died. It's just, it's not like that. I mean, the mortality rate, right now, the mortality rate for the coronavirus is 3.4%. So out of 100 people, 3.4 people will die.
Yeah.
I feel really sorry for that 0.4 person. But
yeah, that really sucks.
Yeah.
If I'm going to die, I hope I die all the way or not at all.
Only 40% of you die.
Yeah.
But 3.4%. And so I'm going to read you some contrasting data. Okay. It says, according to the World Health Organization, a coronavirus is a type of virus that is transmitted from animals to humans. With a new strain first infects humans, it is known as a novel coronavirus. Other famous illnesses caused by coronaviruses include severe acute respiratory syndrome, SARS, and Middle East respiratory syndrome, MERS. COVID-19 was first discovered in 2019 and is a novel coronavirus. Okay, so here are some common symptoms, and I'm going to contrast and compare influenza with COVID-19. COVID-19, common symptoms. And we will put the resources for this in the show notes, so you'll know that this is actual real data or real information. COVID-19, fever, cough, shortness of breath. Okay, those are the primary symptoms. Influenza, fever, chills, cough, sore throat, runny, stuffy nose, muscle body aches, headaches, fatigue, vomiting, and diarrhea. Okay, now let's talk about the number of illnesses. Right now, as of in between the months of October 2019 and March 1st, 2020, with COVID-19, we've had a little over 100,000 people infected. With influenza, we've had 1 billion people infected with influenza. Okay?
Yep.
Deaths caused with COVID-19 as of March 1st, 2020, which is a couple weeks ago, was 3,977. And with influenza in that same time frame, it was estimated, because we're not quite sure how many of these actually came from influenza and how many of them didn't.
Right.
It was estimated to be somewhere between 291,000, 646,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people.
Yep.
Yeah, and I always wonder, how much of a coincidence do we have between either influenza and coronavirus and something else, right?
Right, right.
Is it the people that are dying, are they dying just because of coronavirus, or are they getting coronavirus and then one of the other influenza strains?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
So we have another statistic here called death rate by factor.
Okay.
And death rate by factor is basically how many people that died from this had other pre-existing conditions. What percentage of those had pre-existing conditions? No pre-existing conditions, it was 1%. 1% of those people who died, which I think we said was 3.4%, 1% of the 3.4% had no pre-existing conditions.
Okay. So that's actually pretty good. If you don't have any pre-existing conditions, you got a pretty good chance of surviving.
Right. 6% cancer, about 7% hypertension, chronic respiratory disorders, 7%, diabetes, 8%. Metabolic disease, and cardiovascular disease, 10%. So those are some of the pre-existing condition numbers.
Okay.
So in general, when you think about this, what should we do about this? What should we do with? Here's our take on this. Now remember, we're not experts in this area.
Right.
We're not epidemiologists. We're not pathologists. But common sense kind of rules the day on things like this. Number one, wash your hands, people. I wash my hands after every single patient, and I do touch my patients, but I wash my hands after every single patient. If you're going to cough and you're going to sneeze, cough and sneeze into your arm. If you have desktop surfaces, clean them off every day, at least once a day.
Right.
If you're in a public place, if you go into a Walmart or you go into a Target or you go into a local store and they have hand sanitation wipes that you can use to wipe off a buggy or a cart or whatever, wipe off the handle before you use it. No big deal. And just don't put your hands all over a bunch of public surfaces like railings and things like that if you can avoid it. It stands to reason, and it makes sense that people that are more feeble and are older generally get this more. Number one, they have a compromised immune system. Number two, their balance is impaired. Their coordination balance is impaired. They're touching surfaces. They're using rails. They're leaning on things more often. So it makes sense. And they're also more indoors more often too. They're in larger groups or more indoors in social settings sometimes.
Where air is sort of recirculated more often.
Yeah, and they're around people that are sick a lot of times too, or people of their same cohorts that generally have some of these, upper respiratory problems, cardiovascular problems, but be smart about general hygiene. That's the only thing we can do is do that, and maybe be smart about if you're in an international community and you're going to be around people that are coming from an area that's highly infected, maybe you wouldn't go to that event, okay?
Sure.
But the idea that we would close American schools because of this, or close colleges, or do these types of things, it's just nonsensical. If we're doing that for coronavirus, why aren't we doing that for influenza?
Right. It happens every year.
I mean, and we don't close entire schools usually unless a large portion of that school population contracts the virus, contracts influenza, and then we shut the school down. But we don't proactively do that. So it's not good reason.
It doesn't. And, I think about this too. Like we mentioned, we're not epidemiologists. Don't look at us for the statistics. We're going to rely on the experts for the statistics on this disease. And I'm sure it's a very complicated situation to try to calculate and track. So I'm sure those statistics will change too as we get more data and more cases develop. But I think at the end of the day, we use the best common sense reasoning we can, washing our hands. I'm looking at my hands right now. They're just raw because, when I coach classes, I wash my hands like 6 times for class,
Yeah, we have sanitizing wipes here in the gym.
Hand sanitizer.
We have antibacterial soap in the bathroom and over in our kitchen area.
Right.
And so...
So, but I'm like, okay, so that's pretty much it. And I mostly do that not for me, but for everyone else that I'm around. I don't want to be the carrier for someone else. I'm not really concerned about myself. And here's why. The way I look at it, this is what we train for. This is one of the reasons that we train.
Right, exactly.
Rip says it very simply and elegantly, I think, in Starting Strength, that we train to become harder to kill.
Yeah, exactly.
This is one of those situations where we want to be harder to kill, right? We're not talking about a combat situation always, although that might be the case. This is the kind of everyday threat that we experience in nature, and all of the species on Earth fought very hard to survive the evolutionary process and lead to where they are today.
Right.
Hardy, strong, hard to kill species.
Yeah. And and our immune system is constantly being bombarded with outside forces. We just don't know it.
That's right.
Every day when you touch a surface or you're around other people and you breathe in air, your immune system is constantly on guard. All you have to do is take something. Here's a good example. I tell patients this all the time when I'm doing dry needling with them. Sometimes I'll say, watch when I put this needle in your skin. I'll put the needle in the skin. Immediately they'll get an increase in response in redness and blood flow.
Yeah.
And that's their body basically saying, oh, there's something in my skin that's not supposed to be.
Right.
That is their immune system reacting to the fact that there's a potential antigen, some type of infective thing, an antigen or a foreign body in their body.
Yeah.
And so our immune system is constantly working. But if you have an impaired immune system, significantly impaired immune system, and you can't fight some of these things off, you need to be careful.
Sure.
But you need to be careful every year.
That's right. And I think that the people who come into the gym and train like we train, they have more resources on hand to weather an infection. We talk about this a lot in terms of, people who get cancer, right? We know several in the strength community who have gotten cancer. They go through chemo. I mean, they're taking a drug, which is killing them. And the goal is to survive so that the drug kills the cancer, but not you.
Right.
Right. And it's a race to the bottom.
Right.
And if you're starting and you walk into that treatment therapy and you're strong and healthy,
have a lot of
lots of muscle mass, you've got a way better chance of surviving than if you don't have any of that, right? Yeah. I think the same thing goes for coming out the other end, letting your immune system do its job to fend off the attack and walk out the other end a healthy, upright human being.
Right, exactly. And I think that's the important point here. And it's important for our listening audience to realize that, again, here are the takeaway points. If you have a compromised immune system and you do lift, let's say you have some type of autoimmune disease or some type of chronic respiratory disease that you had before you started lifting, or you started a fitness program and you still got it, but you manage it. Just be careful.
Yeah.
Wash your hands. Stay away from crowded areas. Keep your hands off public surfaces, and don't be around people with other compromised immune systems that you know have a respiratory infection, no matter what you might think it be. Okay?
Right.
Number 2, don't have a knee-jerk reaction to this. There's got to be some reason why the public sector and the media is having a knee-jerk reaction to this. I'm not quite sure what the gain is on that, but it's spin. It's media spin. It's the spin doctors. And they're hey, they got to make a living too. And the way they make a living is create a new pandemic, which, by the way, according to Webster's definition, this is not a pandemic in regards to the classical disease modeling, okay? Is this spreading? Yes, it's spread throughout the world now. But it's not a high percentage of the population. Like I said, like the 1918 flu, I mean, it killed millions of people.
Right, right.
And so...
Yeah, I saw a comment by the director of I believe it was the World Health Organization, saying like, well, we kind of called it a pandemic. We held off, but we set it so that we could get people serious about taking measures to protect and quarantine areas that need to be quarantined. And I won't pretend to know the scientific difference between an epidemic or pandemic, but yeah, there was some comments as to say it was kind of politically motivated as well.
Yeah,
to motivate action.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna make it seem worse than it is, so people will respond in a manner that, because there's a threshold of it's kind of that whole readiness to change model.
Right.
People don't want to change until they realize they're susceptible to contracting this or there's a problem, and so that I get that.
Yeah.
But so that's kind of our take on the coronavirus, folks. Be harder to kill, be strong. Make sure you got a good quality diet, that you're consuming a lot of water, hydration, proper hydration. Make sure you got good vitamins and minerals in you. Vitamin C, B12, zinc is great for your immune system. Get rest, get plenty of sleep and rest. And stay away from public spaces where there could be a compromised population. Keep your hands off public surfaces. Yeah. Wash your hands. And practice safe coughing techniques.
And for the love of God, please turn off the news.
Yes.
Please turn off the daily news.
Yeah.
There's nothing useful there for you.
Yeah.
Turn it off. Go train. Keep training as normal. Pick up a good book.
Yeah.
There's lots of good books there. And all the information you need to know about this will still be relevant a month from now.
Yep.
Right? So you don't need all that 24-hour news cycle.
I'm trying to travel overseas in less than a month.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, I hope they don't shut me down.
Right.
Darn it.
Right.
But, hey, man, thanks for joining the 40 Fit Radio, and thanks for joining the 40 Fit Nation. If you want to reach out to us, you can reach out at info@40fit.com. You can go to our Facebook page, 40 Fit Nation. That's a group we have there. You can also go to Instagram. Go to at 40 Fit Radio. We loved having you guys today. Hopefully the information was informative, and hopefully you learned something and you can apply it. And it keeps you safe from COVID-19.
We need some Corona beer now.
And sponsored by Corona Beer.
Can we get a sponsorship
of the
here?
beach. Okay.